We talk ourselves out of our spiritual gifts. And then we wonder why we are living our lives unfulfilled. And it is because we are talking ourselves out of our spiritual gifts. We have this avoidant behavior. We have all this doubt. We have this fear, this lack of faith, and we don't walk in our purpose-driven lives. We don't walk towards what God said that we can have. See, if you can have abundance, and if God said the fight is already fixed, then why aren't you going after it? Because we live in this westernized world where we read the scripture and then we don't even use it to play defense. We don't use it to play defense in our mind. We don't use it to play defense when we get this doubt. We don't use it to play defense with the enemy. We just let him come in our minds and just slap anything in there and we go, yeah, you're right. But one thing I know about the enemy is that he is a liar. And one thing about him, he's not just a liar. He cannot tell the truth. Welcome to the Rachel Harper podcast. I'm your host, Rachel. In 2020, my purpose and spiritual gifts refused to be incarcerated behind the four walls of my 9-to-5. Unexpectedly, I quit my career and went full steam ahead into my spiritual gifts of teaching and counseling as an entrepreneur. I now teach, coach, and counsel women on how to heal from the red flag purpose distractors, how to grow in their present with self-healing tools, and how to play mental defense for their birthright of abundance. If that sounds like you, join me inside. John C. Maxwell said, "Whenever I mentor people and help them discover their purpose, I always encourage them to start the process by discovering their strengths, not exploring their shortcomings." Why? Because people's purpose in life is always connected to their giftedness. It always works that way. You are not called to do something that you have no talent for. You will discover your purpose by finding and remaining in your strength zone. Not only can you discover your purpose by the things that you do, but you also can discover your purpose based off of your being. Who are you? And so this is why it's important for us to understand two things. Number one, your identity. And then number two, the red flags that are distracting purpose-driven women from their purpose. Let's get into it. So there are a few red flags that many purpose-driven women often come into contact with that keeps them distracted from their purpose. Now, see, many of us, we don't even understand. We don't know. We have no knowledge of. We're still trying to figure out what is our purpose. That is one of those existential questions that we often ask. But I believe that that is the wrong question that we've been possibly asking all along. We've been looking for outward experiences. We've been looking for the degrees. We've been looking for success to tell us what is our purpose. But really, our purpose does not rely on outside experiences. It does not rely on the successes we've had. It does not rely on the things that we do externally. I believe that all of our purpose is already inside of us. I believe that God already gave us everything we need to know our purpose. But first, it starts with knowing your identity. Who are you? Who are you as a woman? As this podcast today, this episode, it is for the purpose-driven woman, right? And so you may feel like, well, that category isn't for me. If you don't know your purpose, if you don't understand your purpose, if you're confused about your purpose, you might say, well, this isn't for me. Well, guess what? We all have a purpose. All of us are purpose-driven. All of us are looking to reach some way, shape, or form of life in which we can be satisfied, in which we can hear, "Good and faithful servant, you've done well. You've done what you're supposed to do. You've done what you heard, and you have been in obedience in living out your life." I think we all are striving for that. Am I right? But some of us, we have taken this westernized world way of thinking and believing that it is always the external factor that is going to drive us to our next. It is your being, right? It starts with you. It starts inside of you, knowing the things that we were called to do. It is in our spiritual gifts. Now, there are different types of spiritual gifts that many of us really don't truly understand. And this is why I say that, because when we start comparing ourselves to other people and looking at the gifts of other people, that is when we know that we do not understand, have no knowledge of, and do not quite grasp our own spiritual gifts. And so for me, I can tell you straight up that I'm an educator. I'm an educator not because I am certified to teach in a classroom, but because that is the gift that I realized just looking back over the different things I have done, my different strengths. It was always in teaching in some way, shape, or form, even though it was not always in the classroom. So here's a list of spiritual gifts. Spiritual gifts can be comforting, directing, supporting, encouraging, giving, mentoring, organizing, pioneering, problem solving, and even teaching. That's just a few, right? Those are just a few that you may see. There's so many more. And so when we look at what can be stopping our spiritual gifts, I want to go ahead and jump into those 3 areas of our lives that stops us in our tracks from being able to express our spiritual gifts, that keeps us in confusion of what our spiritual gifts are, and stops us from living out our purpose. Let's get it. So red flag warnings for purpose-driven women. Listen, there are 3 areas. There's actually a lot more, but I'm just going to drop 3 here for you to start thinking about. Are these different areas keeping you out of feeling fulfilled in your life and from walking in your purpose and expressing your spiritual gifts every single day in your life? So let's look at number 1. Number 1 is busy being busy. Some of us, we are so busy being busy to the point that we don't even know if we're coming or going. We don't know if we coming or going. We don't know what tomorrow looks like. Tomorrow looked like yesterday, and yesterday looks like today, and today looks like tomorrow. We don't know what day of the week it is. We don't know what time it is. We don't know nothing because we're just so busy being busy. Here's the thing about that. Not only does that keep you away from your rest, but that keeps you from walking in whatever your purpose may be. Right? So if you are busy being busy doing everything else other than walking in your spiritual gift of teaching, of supporting, of comforting, of encouraging, of mentoring, of pioneering, of organizing, of problem solving, whichever spiritual gift may be yours, then what are you really doing? Right? And so I believe that God sometimes put us in this season where we do feel unfulfilled. Your emotions tells you when you feel like you aren't in alignment. Your emotions tell you when you aren't in alignment. So when you're walking through life feeling like there has to be more to life than this, I'm feeling unsatisfied. I'm not satisfied with the way that my life is going. I'm not satisfied with the lack I'm in, the scarcity mindset that I have, the relationship that I'm in, right? You have to get back to that alignment of saying, where is my life not aligning with what God is telling me to do? Am I walking in obedience? Am I actually living out my spiritual gifting? But sometimes we don't give ourselves time to say, am I living out my life in full fulfillment of what it is that God is telling me to do? Am I living that? Am I living that out? Because listen, here's the thing. When you don't walk your life in the way of obedience of what God is telling you to do with your spiritual gift, there is someone out there in the world who is still struggling because you have yet to execute on your spiritual gift and put your spiritual gift out there in the world. You're like hoarding it. You're a spiritual thief. You're like a thief of the next generation because you should be out there answering someone's question. You should be out there answering someone's troubles and saying, you know what? I have the answer to that very struggle that you're dealing with. I have the answer to that because I don't believe that God puts us here for no reason. I absolutely believe that when God puts us here on this earth, he put us here because he knew that there will be someone who needs to have their problems answered in some way, shape, or form based off of your spiritual gift. And when you don't execute on your spiritual gifting and you hoard it to yourself because you're afraid or you have some other red flags that's kind of stopping you, preventing you, like busy being busy, then you're not allowing yourself to really work to your fullest fulfillment. You're not walking in obedience. You're stealing from the next generation. There is a lot that may be backfiring, and you may not be able to see it now, but it can be backfiring for the next generation. And maybe you can see it now because now you're overly tired because you're busy being busy doing all the things that has nothing to do with your spiritual gifting. You're doing things because you're seeing someone else do it. You're doing something because it just makes you some more money. But here's the mistake we make. Again, westernized world thinking of believing that our purpose is always tied to a job. What if your spiritual gift of teaching is attached to you going to the library and just teaching someone how to read for free? It might be for free. It might be in your free time. What if your spiritual gift is going to the hospice unit and helping someone be comforted? What if your spiritual gift is just encouraging women in a jail? What if your spiritual gift is mentoring young girls? What if your spiritual gift is just giving, right? Maybe you have an excess of money. Maybe your spiritual gift is giving, being a philanthropist. Like, what does that look like for you? And it's not always about you getting something back. Sometimes your spiritual gift, all the time, your spiritual gift is about you giving out to the world. Because again, it says that your spiritual gifts, your gifts will put you in front of great men. It doesn't mean you're always going to get a lot of money back. It doesn't mean you're always going to get this huge return. But based off the scripture, I do know it says it's going to put you in front of great men. And so how you interpret that, is how you interpret it. Go and read the scripture. Don't have time for that today, but it's going to put you in front of great men. So however you interpret that, listen, take it and run with it. So let's look at red flag number 2. So that red flag warning for purpose-driven women, this is the second distraction that keeps us away from walking in our purpose. Broken relationships. This episode is brought to you by the Heal, Grow, Reset 90-Day Journal. To love yourself is to spend one-on-one time getting to relearn who you are. How often do you begin and end your day focusing on your needs? Your world is spinning so fast that you rarely have time to slow down and see how you're doing before checking on everybody else. You're being pushed and pulled in so many directions, and your experiences are keeping you trapped in the past and away from your future. You see, for the next 90 days, this journal of power will guide you to spend 5 quiet minutes alone, regaining your voice, body, power, and sense of self. I created this journal with my 10 plus years of mental health expertise to help you easily deep dive into your sea of healing, growth, and resetting. Are you ready to deep dive into your next stage of healing and growth? Just go to rachelharper.org and order your Heal, Grow, Reset journal. See, one thing about broken relationships is that when relationships are broken, it can hurt you to your core. When relationships get broken based off of what happened, right? Sometimes you can attach that brokenness to your own identity. You can take that brokenness and say, because I was mishandled in this way, then that must mean that I am not worthy of more. I must not be worthy of living in abundance. I'm not worthy of having peace. I'm not worthy of going out and trying to spread my spiritual gifts. Or sometimes based off of the broken relationship you're in, it can stop you right dead in your tracks from moving forward and working your spiritual gifts and putting it out into the community and allowing yourself to be in alignment with your purpose. Because one thing that we know, one thing about relationships is that we put a lot of emphasis, we put a lot of focus in it, we put a lot of time in it. And so one of the things we're going to do is we're going to try to always get our relationships back on track. And we're going to give it a lot of time, and we're going to give it all the things that it needs in order to cultivate that good relationship back. Like it was in the beginning. We always miss the beginning until it gets bad, right? And then once the relationship gets bad, and then it's just like, oh, let me just try to hold on. And so now you're distracted. One of the things I believe that we as women can start doing is knowing how to put our focus on our purpose while also putting our focus in the other areas of our lives. Does that mean you should always be doing all the things? Does that mean you need to have a good relationship and just leave every time a relationship is, a little rocky? No, absolutely not. Work the relationship out. But also remember that your spiritual gifts is not just for you, but they are for other people who are waiting on you to show up. They're waiting on you to answer their questions. They're waiting on you to start the business. They're waiting on you to write the book. They're waiting on you to write the song. They're waiting on you to comfort them. They're waiting on you to pioneer that next idea. They're waiting on you to mentor them through their relationship, right? And so what can you do when it comes to that broken relationship? But try to say, in this moment, if this relationship is ending, what can I do in this moment? And so I always talk about heal, grow, reset. Heal, grow, reset. 3 stages. First you heal, then you grow, and then you go reset. How do I move forward? Right? So yes, absolutely. If you are in a broken relationship, give it what it needs to be nurtured. But if that relationship is ending, and let's say you're going through these areas of grief because that relationship has ended, heal, grow, and reset. So that leads me into red flag number 3. That is emotional turmoil. So the 2 specific emotions I want to talk about is fear and anxiety. Fear and anxiety keeps us from moving in our purpose. Listen, one thing about fear is either a real threat or a fake threat. And I don't like to really use the word fake, but for the lack of a better word, it is a threat that has not happened. It is not real. It has been brought on in your mind, right? And it is about something that has happened immediately or is about to happen. Anxiety is a thought in your mind about a future threat. Let's say your spiritual gift is pioneering, right? You're this person who has all these great ideas that no one else understands, that no one else gets. People saying you crazy. Why is that a thought in your mind, right? We always need pioneers. There's always something new and fresh that we can use to make our lives better, right? Hence cell phones, hence computers, right? So that was someone's thought. It made our lives better, made our lives a little bit smoother. Of course, there's some cons there, but we always need pioneers. But you have this fear of people rejecting your ideas, so you never get your idea off the ground. Or you have this anxiety about the future, and you have put this thought in your head that, man, if I put this out there, it's going to just suck and nobody's going to want it, and I'm going to go broke and I'm going to be living under a bridge, right? All of that from fear and anxiety. So now you have this avoidant behavior where you never get your idea off the ground because you are so full of the emotional turmoil of fear and anxiety. Fear, an immediate threat, anxiety, a future threat. So whether it is real or just made up in your head, regardless of what, you say, I'm not moving forward in that spiritual gift. And so now everything you do, every job you've ever had, every direction that you go, you are just bursting at the seams with feeling like, man, I really want to get this off the ground. The idea comes back over and over again. That's your spiritual gift talking to you. We talk ourselves out of our spiritual gifts. And then we wonder why we are living our lives unfulfilled. And it is because we are talking ourselves out of our spiritual gifts. We have this avoidant behavior. We have all this doubt. We have this fear, this lack of faith, and we don't walk in our purpose-driven lives. We don't walk towards what God said that we can have. See, if you can have abundance, and if God said the fight is already fixed, then why aren't you going after it? Because we live in this westernized world where we read the scripture and then we don't even use it to play defense. We don't use it to play defense in our mind. We don't use it to play defense when we get this doubt. We don't use it to play defense with the enemy. We just let him come in our minds and just slap anything in there. And we go, yeah, you're right. But one thing I know about the enemy is that he is a liar. And one thing about him, he's not just a liar. He cannot tell the truth. And so if he can't tell the truth, that lets me know that anything that he puts in my head, I already know it's a lie. And so that is for me to say, well, if I'm supposed to be meditating on the word day and night, that's not just for me to play offense. That's also there for me to play defense. And the same for you too. You're just letting the thoughts go in your head and it's just talk you out of your spiritual gifts. And now your life is unfulfilled and you're out of alignment from what it is you're supposed to be doing and where you're supposed to be going, which then affects all that you can have and all that you can do and the places that you can travel and the money that you can have because your gifts are supposed to put you in front of great men. Listen, it is all biblical. It's all there. And I believe that what we have done is we have westernized our way of being and it has messed up our truths. It has messed up where we're going. It has messed up our next generation and all the things that they can accomplish because we have decided to live in our comfort. We have decided to play small. We have decided that it's not good enough what I want. I'm too afraid. I have all these other things to focus on. I'm too busy to go in that area. And we live life unfulfilled. We live life living in lack. We live life just wanting more, just wishing and hoping and praying and thinking that God is a genie when he's saying all you need to have is faith and works. Know your spiritual gifts. Have faith and have works. You got to put in the work to get your abundance. So for the purpose-driven woman, these distractions, I hope that they would not distract you any longer because your purpose is important. Your spiritual gifts need to be executed on. And God said that you can have so much more. All you need is faith and works. When that is combined together, listen, you can take on the whole world. But also remember, when you're meditating on the word day and night, it is for a reason. It's not to just fill a quota. It's not to just check off your to-do list. It's to help you play defense. You got to play D1 ball with those thoughts, with that busyness, with the fear, with the anxiety, with the broken relationships. You got to claim what it is that you can have. Be sure that you subscribe to this podcast. Make sure that you share this podcast with another purpose-driven woman who desires to utilize their spiritual gifts and to stop living a life out of alignment with what God said that you can have. I'll see you next time.